Hello guys and welcome back to another Doctor Who figure review. Now it's been a while since I've been able to do one of these, but if you haven't guessed from the little bit of a packaging you can see in the centre of the screen right now, this is of course the brand new 15th Doctor and Ruby Sunday Vortex edition online exclusive action figures. So let's take a look at the packaging and then review them. So first of all, the big key thing to remember here is that actually these figures are not sold separately. They do come in a little pack like this and they're all nicely bundled together. We'll take a little bit of a look at the actual figurine packaging in just a moment. I think it's really nice. It's plain and white and simple. It's got the really nice solid brand new Doctor Who logo there, which I think is absolutely fantastic, and a nice little nod to the classic era. Taking these two figures out of their respective box, they look really nice together. I think the packaging design's fantastic. I love the design of the purple vortex on the front. We'll take a little bit of a look at the further details on the packaging. Both of the packagings are pretty much identical. The only difference is that the description on the back is different. First thing to note about the packaging is that we've got a nice big window that displays the 15th Doctor action figure with his accessories. We can see here on the right hand side that there is a Vortex edition collector figure, and it's also in the 5.5 inch scale. Further down we can see there that it says the 15th Doctor and of course the 15th Doctor again. It's also very clear that this is 5+, and I imagine somewhere there is a choking hazards warning. Moving to the back of the figure, we can see here that there is a nice little description about the 15th Doctor. I'm not going to read it, but if you do want to read it then you can take your time to pause it now. Brilliant. Looking down on the bottom side, we can also see the contents of this. Includes the 15th Doctor collector figure with sonic screwdriver accessory, one landmine accessory and one psychic paper accessory. We've got all the legal jargon and the official Doctor Who merchandise logo there to claim that this is an official Doctor Who figure, and we know that it's not fake. We can see on the side here it says Doctor Who with that lovely little bit of the TARDIS leading on there with the purple vortex. We've got our legal jargon at the bottom with of course that choking hazard thing that I did mention, the barcode there, and of course the BBC Doctor Who logo on the side. The top and the side are pretty much the same. Nothing much has changed there. Ruby Sunday's box is very similar. There's nothing much very different on there other than the back of the box. You can clearly see here that it's exactly the same. We can see the big window with Ruby Sunday's action figure on display, and if we take a look at the back of the box, we've got a new description for Ruby Sunday. You can pause the video now if you want to read that. Okay, so with that in mind, let's take a look at the figures themselves. So now that the figure's out of its packaging, we can see here that he is lined up with all his accessories. We can see that he comes with his sonic screwdriver, the landmine and the psychic paper. We'll take a little bit of a look at those in detail further later on, but first of all we're going to look at this figure's detail. So starting off with the head sculpt, of course, we can see here that he's obviously supposed to be the 15th Doctor actor, Ncuti Gatwa. I think instantly you can tell just from looking at this figure exactly who this is supposed to be. It's not obscure. I know sometimes in the past we've had some figures where they don't quite match the actor's face, but this 100% does look like Ncuti Gatwa, and I wouldn't have confused it with anyone else. I think if you just look down there, further down his coat, you can also see he's got some detail of some chains and his necklaces that he wears, as well as we start to go and look at his t-shirt with his little zip on. We can also see that the coat is also quite detailed in terms of all its little lapels and the flaps that come over there, and we can just see some details of some little buttons there. Just taking a closer look at his face there from a different angle, it's unmistakably Ncuti Gatwa. There is no doubt about it. The eye details look fantastic. I think maybe the right eye looks like the white dots in slightly the wrong place. But actually the actual detail and the sculpt on the head is fantastic. There's a little bit of detail there where you can just see that the head sculpt's been clipped together, but actually on display and from a distance you actually can't notice it. If we just move around the back of the head, you can see that he's got his nice bud cut short hair. I think the only thing that would have made it better is if there was a bit more sort of texture on the top there. Where his hair would have been, because it just feels like it's been sort of just painted on with black paint in the style of his haircut. But that being said, there is a tiny bit of texturing within the paint, but it would have been nice to feel it a bit more embossed and a bit raised. Anyway, let's move further down the figure. Moving down the figure, we can see here that obviously I've already highlighted, we've got his necklaces. and his zip there. On the coat you can see there's some lovely texturing and detail on it with its weathered looking brown, and you can also see that there's all the little sort of folds and creases within it. I think, to be honest, thinking about all the previous Doctor action figures, this is probably the most detailed Doctor coat we've ever seen, just in terms of the detail, in terms of its look. It's very unique, it's very different, but it also feels like it's more worn, even down to the little belt buckle hanging there. I think that's fantastic. Moving down and looking at his hands, we can see from his hands here he's got a couple of rings on there. It's not really that I can see any detail on those rings. I am pretty sure that in real life they do have some details on, and it's the same over here on this hand. If I can get the camera to focus, we can see there that he has got his a couple of rings there too. Moving down, we've of course got his shirt underneath, which we can see just here, just by peeking behind. The design of it, of course, this is the figure from the church on Ruby Road, and obviously the bit kind of what immediately comes to me is when he stands outside the TARDIS crying, watching the baby Ruby get dropped off. We can see here his pants begin here. They're quite high-waisted by the looks of things. Not too shabby, to be honest. Nice blue painted, nice creases. Not much detail on those, I don't think. There's a few creases, but I definitely think we've had more detailed pants in the past. And looking at the trainers, I have to say these are probably the most detailed looking trainers we've seen on a Doctor figure. I think they've done such a great job to replicate what he actually wears in the show with the trainers. I think they're just going to be, I have a feeling that these will become quite recognisable, very similar to the Converse that David Tennant wore, became quite recognisable. And obviously there's been jokes made about them since in the show, but overall absolutely fantastic detail right down to the lacing. So I actually think this figure's got absolutely fantastic detail on it. I've not seen a figure this detailed in such a long time, especially a character options figure. Obviously most times these days they're producing the B&M sets, but actually they're online exclusives. I've not seen a figure this detailed in such a long time, and it's such a refreshing thing to look at, to see that actually we are starting to see these realistic looking figures. And maybe that's because technology has moved on a long way, but overall I think it's absolutely fantastic that we can see it this way. Now we're going to look at this figure's articulation. So moving on and starting with the head, this figure's head can do a 360-degree swivel. It can also move side to side and up and down, which is a very refreshing piece of articulation to have on a Doctor Who action figure. The arms, of course, have continued to be developed. He can put his arm all the way out. They are on a ball joint, so you could do a regeneration if you wanted. Obviously a classical regeneration, these days they pop out of each other's bodies. The elbow's also there at a 90-degree elbow joint, and you can also spin that 360 degrees. I don't want to do it too much in case it hinders the paint. The hand can also slightly swivel side to side. Moving on down, we can see here, if we just look behind the coat, there is a waist articulation which can obviously spin 360 degrees if you wanted that to happen. He cannot do the splits, or at least my figure cannot do the splits. If that is something that's different, then let you know. I would have thought he could, but then also I don't see like the ball joint connection there, so maybe not. But he can kick his leg out forward, and he can bend his knee at the 45-degree angle that we're used to. It gets hindered by the coat there if you want to put it any further back. And his shoes also pivot from side to side and slightly up and down. So overall for articulation, this is probably one of the most articulated figures that we've seen within the Doctor Who figure collection range. I think it's absolutely fantastic that we've been given this articulation. I think it's one of the most detailed, one of the most articulated action figures that we've got out of Doctor Who, especially within recent years. Moving on now, we're going to take a look at the accessories this figure comes with. The first one I want to take a look at is the landmine. Of course, this is the landmine that he sits on in Boom. Well, he stands on in Boom, and he's on for the entire episode. Fantastic concept for a Doctor Who story. I mean, it's interesting that we've got it. I think it's a nice little addition to sort of have included. I definitely think it's worth yeah, interesting. I think it's definitely worth including it. I think it was a big part of the 15th Doctor series, so it's nice to have it as part of this Vortex edition. I am aware the general release version doesn't come with this, it only comes with the sonic screwdriver accessory. Looking at this, I think maybe the paint work could have been a little bit better on the side. It doesn't really seem like lights to me. It just, yeah, it looks a bit like it's supposed to be like blue mesh or something. The top of it, again, could have been a bit more textured. It is just a sticker that's been sticked on. And the bottom of it, we can tell here has just got all that sort of legal sort of stuff that they have to put on there. But overall, not very detailed, but it is nice to have. I will say that there is a bit of texturing on the side, and this is embossed, so it's not a stick around the side. So there's a little bit of effort being put into it, but I think it'll go nice as part of the stand. I think it would have been nice if maybe this could have been swapped out for like maybe a top that has a peg on it, and maybe the peg could have gone into the foot of the Doctor if he'd have had like a peg hole for display purposes. But overall, not too shabby of an accessory to come with a Doctor Who figure. Okay, so the next accessory is the psychic paper. It is very small and very hard to actually capture the detail on this on camera. You can tell it keeps going out of focus looking at it. It is literally just a bit of plastic that looks half folded to fit in the Doctor's hand. Of course it looks blank to you, but you know, to anyone else, of course, it could be the pass entrance to anywhere in the universe, because obviously that's the purpose of it. One thing I will say is it is very refreshing to have this included within an action figure, because this is actually the first time we've ever got the psychic paper as an accessory. And what's great about this is that obviously all the modern Doctors have used the psychic paper. So you could display this with your 9th, your 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, potentially even your 14th Doctor as well, if you've got that figure. So I think it's really good that that gets included, and I think it's nice that there is a tiny bit of detail just there on the flap. It would have been nice maybe if it did open and close, but other than that, yeah, it's a nice little accessory to have included with a sort of online exclusive 15th Doctor action figure accessory. And finally, the big one is, of course, the final action figure that the 15th Doctor comes with is, of course, his sonic screwdriver. Again, this is absolutely tiny and hard to capture the details on. Although I will say, just looking at it from a glance, as you can see now, it is extremely detailed. I've not actually got the 15th Doctor sonic screwdriver sort of toy yet. But as you can see there, from the pictures I've seen online of the screwdriver, I think that that is a very close match. Am I asking for too much for it to have come with a closed version as well? Probably. I think we had that was probably one of the biggest pet peeves with the 11th Doctor sonic screwdriver accessory, was that it was always open, and yet it was very rare he used it open. He always seemed to use it closed, and that was the iconic look of it. That being said, I do think that this probably fits within the figure's hand a lot better being like this than had it have been closed like a computer mouse. That being said, it is extremely detailed for a sonic screwdriver accessory. I know in the past we've had it where it's just a dollop of paint on the top, and it looks a bit shoddy. But yeah, this is a really fantastic accessory and a great collection to have to any Doctor Who figure collection. Maybe it'd been nice to have a bit of paint there so it does look like it's actually lit up and working. But you know, maybe that does give you sort of, if you're taking photos or displaying it, maybe that gives you stuff to work with and it's not too distracting. But that being said, absolutely fantastic accessory for the 15th Doctor. Just before I move on to the Ruby action figure, I just wanted to actually show you the sonic screwdriver in the Doctor's hand. It does just fit in quite nicely, and his hand doesn't look too odd without the screwdriver in either. I think it's an absolutely fantastic way to display this action figure. But let's move on to his all-important companion, Ruby Sunday. So here is Ruby Sunday with her 2 accessories that she comes with. We'll take a little bit of a look at the accessories afterwards. Let's first of all look at the detail on this action figure. Looking at this action figure, you can see there's a really nice face and hair sculpt. I think it's good that the hair feels quite solid. It's not loose like we've seen on previous figures where it's a bit flexible. I would say this isn't as good of a face sculpt of Millie Gibson as the 15th Doctor one is of Ncuti Gatwa. That being said, I think they've tried to capture her likeness quite nicely. There is a bit of a blemish on the eyes on my figure, but it's not too distracting and you can't notice it up close anyway. That being said, I still think she's got quite a bit of detail on her. I think the hair's quite nice. I think it's nicely painted. For a blonde action figure, I think they've done well to give her quite a bit of texturing and a few different kind of coloured layers, a few different washes in there. So that's absolutely fantastic. Moving down the coat, we've got this like leather jacket that's obviously got like sort of fluffiness there. I think it's great that this isn't just painted white, that there is actually texture to it. It reminds me a little bit like the Pandorica Opens River Song action figure from I'd say a few years ago. It's quite a while now. I think it's great that there is that texture there. I think it's nice that we've got her little necklace painted on there. Again, it is raised a little bit, so it is sculpted. The coat obviously is obstructed slightly as we sort of move down it, but actually this coat is really detailed. We've got the nice little sort of belt and sort of buckle things that come around there. Goes all the way around, some wonderful creases. We've got the little arm detail of the arm buckles there, and on the other side of course. And of course we've got the little buckle there. I don't know what it is about the 15th Doctor and his companion, but they seem to like belt buckles. Moving down, we've got the skirt. I think it's a really detailed skirt. Maybe we could have got the Doctor in his kill as well. Pretty simple painted pattern, very similar to a lot of the skirts and pants that we've seen in sort of past action figures. Nice sculpt to it. I think they've done a good job of actually sculpting it to her body, and it fits quite nicely. Looking at her hands, you can see there that she has got some rings on her fingers, very similar to the 15th Doctor. Again, not really much detail on them, but they have painted her nails black, which I think is interesting because it's not often we see the nail varnish on these female figures. Now, this is where the details of these action figures seem to get a little bit skewiff. Obviously, we can see wonderful nail varnish on this figure as well as we can see the ring there. What bothers me is this finger. Why is it so outstretched? Now, I'm aware that with her mobile phone accessory in her hand, this works well. However, as I'll talk about at the end of the video, the general retail versions of these figures have been sort of released a look of, and that figure doesn't come with an accessory. However, her hand is still the same sculpt. In fact, to be honest, the retail figures are the exact same sculpts except painted differently. Am I going to get them? Of course I am. They're different variants, but that's not the point. The point is her finger will look a bit weird without the phone, so I think it's a strange thing to have included the phone in this one and not in the general release one when the hand's clearly sculpted for the phone. That being said, moving down, we've got some very plain looking legs. They're grey. I'm presuming they're supposed to be tights or leggings. Yeah, not really any detail or texturing on them. Moving down to the boots. Boots tend to be always well sculpted on Doctor Who figures from my experience in the past. We can just see there that there's some nice sort of laces on there. Again, it's all painted black, so you can't see much detail. There's nothing really that stands out. A little bit of silver kind of sort of little spike bits there painted on, which is nice to see. Do you see what I mean? It's like it's been belted downwards there and clipped in, whereas it's up on that one. I don't know, it's a nice little detail to have, I suppose. Obviously on the bottom we've got those legal things. I know these figures do not have peg holes, so if you've got any stands they won't be able to fit. Nice little footprint though, however. Overall, I think the detail is good on the actual body itself. I think the t-shirt as well, I've not really focused on it, but if you actually look at the t-shirt, it is got quite a lot of like embossed design to it. I think that's really good. I will say these probably are very detailed figures compared to what we're used to seeing. That being said, I don't think this figure looks very much like Millie Gibson. But it is nice to finally get the new companion action figure. Now let's take a look at her accessories. Throughout Series 1, and of course in the Church on Ruby Road, Ruby does carry her red bag. Now, instantly seeing this, all I am picturing is Clara and her red bag. That being said, this is a smaller bag. Now, this bag's clearly intended to just be for maybe a small bit of lipstick, her phone, and that's it. It's more like a going out bag, which makes sense because she was clubbing in the Church on Ruby Road. The detail wise, I think it's nice that it's not all one solid red colour. It's got the little brown bits there, and it's got a nice little buckle. The actual thing itself is quite hard plastic, whereas the strap's quite loose, flappy plastic. That's it for the detail on that. I imagine it literally just fits over her head quite nicely. Yeah, I don't know, bit strange that it's been included, but I get why. Maybe it'd have been nice if it could have opened, and maybe we could have put the phone in it. But yeah, let's have a look at the phone itself. If there's one thing these two figures aren't shy of, it's tiny accessories. Now, I will be honest, you can tell that they've missed a bit of paint on this one, where it doesn't quite line up with the screen. That being said, it is strange to have a Doctor Who companion's accessory being a mobile phone. You can see there that obviously it's got the 3 cameras. We know obviously what brand this phone's supposed to be. I think it's good that they have included it, considering that sort of Ruby's kind of standout episode in season 1 really heavily does, obviously 73 yards, really heavily does feature the phone, and it's kind of the phone that saves the day when she obviously, spoiler alert, uses it to bring the 73-yard woman to the sort of the Mad Jack within that episode. Overall though, it's not too detailed. There's not really any button detail or anything on it, which is a bit strange. There's not even I mean, I wasn't expecting a headphone jack, but there's not a phone charging jack or anything like that. Maybe it'd have been cool if it had had like some apps displayed on the screen, but I guess you know, for a little accessory this small would have been asking a bit too much for that. But at least it's not just one flat block. There is a bit of an embodied design on there. So yeah, let's take a look at it in Ruby's hand. Okay, so this is the figure displayed with her accessories. Now, when I was actually going through the detail, I did discuss that the hand with the finger looks like that should be to hold the phone. However, trying to put the phone in there did prove quite difficult. It actually seemed easier to put the phone in her other hand. I imagine you probably can get it in there, but it might look a bit strange. But obviously I've got to like this for now, but we'll see if we can get it in her other hand. But now let's move on and look at the articulation of this figure. Just taking a look at the phone in the other hand, you can get it in with a bit of difficulty. It does look a bit strange though. Yeah, I'm not sure what the purpose of that finger being like that is. Is she turned into E.T.? Anyway, let's take a look at the articulation on this figure. So, the first bit of articulation, obviously, that we are going to look at on this figure is the head. The head, very similar to the Doctor, can do its full 360 degrees, but it is hindered by the hair, and I don't want to push it. It can bob up and down, very similar to the Doctor, and nod sort of side to side-ish as well. You can definitely tell that it's on that ball joint there. The arm can obviously lift up if you wanted Ruby to regenerate. It does obviously do the full 360 degrees at the shoulder. And of course, like I said, yes, she can put her arm all the way out. The elbow does also do a 360 degree spin as well as bend there. The hand, again, can swivel slightly, but it's only ever so slight. Moving down, now I didn't mention this on the Doctor figure because I've only just discovered it, but actually, and I was going to suggest that this would be worth including, these figures actually have an ab crunch, which is unbeknown for a Doctor Who figure. So I think that's exciting that this actually has an ab crunch there. Of course, her waist then does swivel 360 degrees, which is fantastic. Her legs can move forward and backwards slightly, but they are hindered by the skirt. She can't do the splits just like the Doctor, but she wouldn't need to be hindered by the skirt anyway. Her knee, of course, does bend at the 90-degree angle. Well, her thighs also spin 360 degrees. And her knee obviously bends there at the joint. Her foot can also swivel 360 degrees too. So that's it for the articulation on this figure. So overall, what do I think of these figures? I think the detail on these figures is I think it's better on the 15th Doctor than it is on Ruby. I think that the articulation is the best articulation I've seen on a Doctor Who action figure for a long time, and a action figure in general. I like the accessories included here. I think that they could have had a little bit more detail on some of them, particularly obviously the bag and the sort of landmine. That being said, I do think that these are two really great figures of the new Doctor and the new companion to go with any Doctor Who figure collection set. So the price for these figures is $39.99 from the Character Options website. Do I think it's worth the $39.99? Given the retail price of other figures that they sell on there and the B&M sets that come out, I would actually say that the $39.99 tag for two action figures of this level of detail with this level of articulation is definitely worth it. So if you are a collector of Doctor Who action figures, I would recommend definitely buying these action figures. If, of course, you don't want to splurge out on the $39.99, there are two retail versions of these figures becoming available soon. You can see on the screen now, this is the example of the 15th Doctor's retail version. Yeah, I like the packaging of this new version, and you can see there that the sonic screwdriver is included. And of course, we are getting a retail version of Ruby Sunday as well, which you can now see on the screen. The retail version of Ruby Sunday doesn't come with any of the accessories, but it has got a different nice paint job. And I think it's worth getting them both to add to your collection as variants, as we do whenever we're collecting Doctor Who action figures. That's it for this video in terms of obviously recapping these action figures. If you've enjoyed it, then please make sure that you hit that like button and that you hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I've been the Doc 11. I'll see you next time. Goodbye for now, guys. Goodbye.